does that mean you have actually an action plan? Who's doing what in this period, you know? So you are ready already to be contacting this company in this time, you know, in 2 months or so on?
Yeah.
So you base a plan already?
Yeah. Yeah.
How long does that, this plan reach over?
Well, we have a plan for a year.
For a year?
Yeah.
Will actually you need to do this and this?
We have,
accomplish this and this?
if I understand the question correctly, we basically took our technical milestone plan and built the whole thing around that. Because we took the milestones from the technical perspective, software development, and then put some marketing and also business development on top of those milestones. So for example, we're going to start acquiring the first customer, the initial customer, when the proof of concept is done. Because then we can say, hey, look, it's possible, it's feasible, it's productive, and so on and so forth.
Actually, what I was talking about was much more detail about you together's work. You have resources of 3 persons. And to accomplish your plan, you need to have a detailed action plan that this date will contact this company.
Yeah.
They will take maybe a month to get into this company and so on.
Yeah.
In the same time, you have several actions trying to generate a push into a new company or so on. So you all the time have planned your actions.
Yes.
Because the milestone is good, but to accomplish the milestone, you need to have a detailed plan for each step.
Of course, and of course we do.
Okay.
My military head is.
Okay, short. Jørgen and then Arne.
Excuse me. I think you have to deal with the risk that the company takes by choosing you, because it's not just you say that your software works, or you can see it works in some reference place. You need to give some guarantee. You need to have a whole service organization. If our system at Rødekro doesn't work, it must be running within half an hour. You need to think about that, and that's important for big companies, that things just run and run and run and run, because that's effective.
Absolutely.
And to give 5 million for something, people know the software. Okay, it costs something to make, and afterwards it's just copy. So, in order to make a business case where you can give for 5 million kroner value, I think that's very, very difficult, unless you are facing an upgrade which costs more. All other business cases which 1% there and 1% there, that's nobody will believe that, or they will not pay the risk money for that.
Yeah, but of course we understand that very much. And that's why we see this, at least at the beginning, in the first 2 years, that's why we say it's a joint project to us and the IT department, and that's very, very important. It's very important that we also educate them in the duration of that product in solving problems. And of course, if something happens with our software, it's our responsibility, and we need to step in and stop that. And that's also why we need the money to also grow in terms of manpower to be able to handle such a request from the company. Yeah, definitely.
I don't need to answer every question, but
yeah,
that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just had a thought regarding what is actually the key knowledge or key value you actually are having in the company. What I'm thinking about here is that it seems that the unique solution is a decentralized way of doing it. That's at least what you claim. And is it really that is the key knowledge or key value, or is it actually the application of it, meaning solving customers' pain, as you said before, out in the different companies? And I think it's very important to give a clear question, or a clear answer to that, because otherwise it's a little bit we're trying to perhaps too much.
It's a combination of the both. It's doing the upgrade, and while doing the upgrade, providing the vehicles with distributed intelligence. That's our really that's where we are unique. We will be the only company able to do that. If we just focus on doing the upgrade, we will probably be able to find a market niche there, but we're not unique. And there's at least one other company doing that, upgrading the central computer, changing some of the hardware, and upgrading the system and improving efficiency and productivity a little bit.
My kind of thinking here were that if it's the decentralized computation which is the unique thing, then it might be that, and you said also that the real customer might actually end up with being the consultancies. So somehow you're trying to go out first to the end customers and then back to the consultancy. That's somehow a very long way around. And it might end up being more interesting perhaps, just to give you a kind of idea here, to go directly to the consultancy and perhaps even think about partnership there, and then actually gaining some experience there, and you can do it almost for free as you already wanted to do, and still keep the rights to the software, and then you can do it to other consultancies as well, as you actually would like to do at the end anyhow.
Yes.
As far as I understood.
Actually, the thing is, we do want to, from the beginning, work together with the consultancies and the end user. The thing that we want to eventually go to is not the end user, but is the AGV manufacturers and suppliers. We want to license our software to them. And that's why we need to create, through the consultancies and the end users, the market demand for decentralized solutions. And but it's very, very correct. We want to make a cooperation with existing consultancies like Miba.
It just sounded for me like you're not totally clear about where in the value chain you actually would like to be, and you're somehow moving a little bit back and forth, and that might actually end up with wasting a lot of efforts at the end. And that's somehow the comment here, just to think about it, that you're not wasting too much effort in trying to be good in all these different chains.
You don't just listen now. We have a lot of good points in that, and just listen now, because they're right. Where are you? Where are you in the value chain? That's important. Nils, you have something?
This was the one that I wanted to get up, because I think you need to educate me at least a little bit about this value chain. And you gave me a hint before, because you said that the AGVs, they only implement their own software. And I assume they have the hardware as well, so they have kind of the vehicles that run around in the logistics house.
Yes.
So there's kind of a lock-in there from their side, of course, to their customer. So once they've got the vehicle in there, they also get the software automatically and all the upgrades and all that.
Absolutely.
Now, if you all of a sudden put your software on their hardware, is there a liability issue? Is there a warranty issue?
Well, there is definitely it's a very good question, because basically an AGV supplier would say, well, now you messed around with the software, that's not our responsibility anymore if something happens. So they would come to us. But for what we've seen a lot with the consultancies, and that's why it's such a relevant point with the cooperation with the consultancies, is what the consultancies are doing is a joint project with the IT department, where they come, they work together with them, they educate the IT department, and leave again. Most of the consultancies, they're not really responsible for hardware, software as such. They won't come and fix things. So what we intend on doing is something very similar. Educate the IT department in such a way, and if something really goes wrong, then we'll come and fix.
But you do want to go from the centralized to the decentralized.
Yes.
And there your software is a key component.
Yes.
You need to implement it on the AGVs physically.
Yeah, physically, yes.
Okay, so you are going to be going on to the hardware that somebody else has supplied.
Yeah, that's right.
And the end customer is potentially going to think this is bad because the warranty that I have with the supplier of the AGV is void after I've had you guys install the software.
Yeah, it's an issue. Yeah.
but mostly these warranties or software service contracts are at an end or nearing their end when we come in. So they're already at the stage of re-evaluating, do we want to continue with these people?
But you're talking about the responsibility that we have after we implement our software, right?
Yeah, but also the whole dynamic here, because you still have an end user, which was the point here as well, that somebody has to be convinced to take a risk on you.
Yeah.
And you are potentially creating a lot of hassle for the end user in the way that you want to approach this. It's kind of given by how you want to approach this value chain, because if you put yourself a little bit further down the value chain, maybe you wouldn't have these issues.
Yes, it's correct.
It's
an issue.
We actually we talked about that, and a while back we actually came to the conclusion that it might be a lot easier for us to sell our software concept, or maybe the entire company, at some point to an AGV supplier. So then that supplier would buy the ability to be a first mover in the decentralized area. The point was we talked to quite some investors and other people about that, and it's not interesting to them, because the value of the company will not go up quick enough to make it interesting to make the initial investment. So that's why we re-evaluated and focused on the consultancies and the end users.
Another question. So you have the complete system here that is supplied by the AGV supplier is all the vehicles that run around in the shop floor, and then there is a central computer as well. Is that supplied by the AGV supplier, or is that a third party that comes in with that?
Usually by the AGV supplier.
It's
So where does the AGV supplier make his money? Is that on the vehicles, on the mainframe, or on the central computer, on the software? Where is he making his money?
Well, that's very difficult to say, because you have here the consultancies, and what you have, like we had this picture with JBT, Agamin, and what happens very often is that, for example, you have these consultancies, they come into the company, then they look at a solution, and it ends up with having vehicles of Swisslog, which running on microcontrol software from Agamin, and having a workflow control system from Soft Design. And that's just the way the consultancies have put it together, and that's something that is somehow accepted by all these suppliers. And we have to look into who at the end of the day is then responsible for what, because the consultancies, that's clear, they just leave. But
no, my point is actually a different one, because you want to make away with the central computer. And I don't know if this is the case, but if that's where the AGV is making all his money, then you have another issue. I don't think this is the case. I think he's making most of his money on the vehicles, probably.
Yeah, I think so too. Well, I know so.
Sorry?
Yeah, it is. A vehicle costs around $750,000 US, and you don't really pay for software, separate. You buy a system, then you buy a system, then you pay for a project. You don't really pay things separately. So either you go to a consultancy which gives you a full solution, or you go to an AGV supplier which gives you a full solution. So, and then you pay for a project. You don't really separate the cost in such a way.
Is that right, Jan? Do you just buy a solution? Do you not? As Niels said, is this hardware, software, consulting? Is that right? Or
we will normally buy a solution, because we don't. It's not. That's you have to understand this. A warehouse or whatever it is, these AGVs. That's not the focus point for any company. It's just something that has to be there and work, and nobody wants to be responsible for that working. No manager or president or anybody wants to be responsible for it working. So nobody wants to say, I have created a cheap solution, because then he's responsible for it works. Yeah. So that's why they hire a consultancy company, and then they can put the blame on the consultancy company. if it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And finally, the consultancy company would be out of business if they make too many failures. But that's the way it works.
But together with the IGV suppliers, that's the best way to, if you go to market, together with them.
Well, there was another solution over here in terms of hooking up with the consultancy. Now, what I think is interesting is that it seems that as long as the consultancy kind of gives it a blue stamp, then the end user doesn't really care.
That's right.
And what also happens, that's what you're telling us, is that there are solutions out there that are kind of a patch of different suppliers, depending on what it is. So obviously, these AGVs, they must have something that is differentiated in some way, and the consultant kind of cherry pick, and then they put together the optimal solution.
Yeah.
So I think maybe there is something that's something you need to dig deeper into, I think,
Definitely.
because that could be an opening somehow. I'm not sure why, but that's interesting, I think, in terms of the dynamics of the value chain.
Exactly.
So that's the way, there's somewhere to focus, I think. That the end user is not just buying a complete solution that is from Danaher, and then everything is Danaher. That there is room to kind of, piggyback and be an ad hoc solution or part of the solution.
Yes.
But the key point is still that you somehow have to convince somebody to take the risk in you as a small company. Now, if what you're saying is true, and you do create the value that you're creating, then the AGVs should be the ones that are most interested in your solution.
Well,
because if what you've told us is correct, if they're making the money on the vehicles, they don't care about the central computer.
no, but we also create a problem for them because we want to sleep with everybody. Right, we want to be an upgrade solution.
But you're making it more complicated for yourself than what is necessary, because you just need to kind of convince one to start with. And then you figure out as you go along how can you may have to give exclusivity for a shorter period of time or whatever it is. But that can be handled if you can convince one of these AGVs to play with you.
We have pretty good contacts with one AGV manufacturer that actually tried to implement decentralized control, but at the end failed and put the project on hold. And it was actually one of our initial ideas to actually go ahead with them, but we got actually so many negative reactions from people from boards like this that we actually changed again and started focusing on consultancies and the end users.
Don't believe that investors know what they're talking about.
Well, we're gonna have to.
No, you're the experts. You have to educate the investors. Well, yeah, it's only an opinion, of course. So from my side, in terms of the AGVs, I think that they're maybe more interesting. The issue is how can you play more than one horse, of course.
Ola?
Yeah, in terms of warranty and so on, I thought about, in general, about risks. Do you have thought about risk management strategy somehow? If something goes wrong, how to deal with that? It can be a lot of money in place here. If the system at Danfoss logistics center doesn't work, how are you insured or some kind of insurance that can take over so you don't get rid totally for the next 10 years or something?
Yeah, but we have to remember that this is the plan for the third year. In the third year, we're planning on being not a 3 people company. So we're planning on being, I don't know, maybe 15 employees with someone who's in charge of a project like Danfoss. Someone has to be available at all times to go and respond to a customer, like Jan said, to be responsible for that. The first 2 references that we're planning on doing is something that we're going to take very easy, very slowly, with interest from both sides, making sure that it works. And then if we decide if they decide to implement it at the end of the day, then we take shared responsibility. That's why we call it a shared project with an end customer.
So you don't think there is no kind of risk in this situation?
Of course there is a risk. There's always the risk after a year that they decide to implement our software and we say it works and they implement it to 16 AGVs and it crashes. So
what I've thought about also was in general, if one of you guys in the middle of a project getting sick, you know,
Well, that's always a risk.
it's always a risk, but you have to thought about it.
I could
In
die
any case of-
tomorrow,
in
especially
any
with
case
where I live my life.
Heart attack or something like that.
Yeah, no, we haven't thought about dying, no.
Well, we have actually thought about dying. We have a
We have a partnership agreement.
we have a partnership agreement that states exactly what happens in the occurrence of the death of a partner and what would happen to the shares
Exactly.
and why family or friends cannot just come in and have a say in the company and
It
those
is
kind of
important
things.
for your company that you have thought about all that, because
Yeah.
everything that can hurt you,
Yeah.
which smash you down, so you need to be prepared for each case of situation, and also
Yeah.
kind of, you know, copying your software and so on. If that is out one time, it's very
We are re-evaluating the patenting possibilities. We work together with Danfoss Ventures on a patent application that was very, very broad, and partly because of that it was turned down. But we have a new partner now who was very, very good. He has a background in robotics and control engineering, and he re-evaluated the patent, and he's of the opinion that we have a strong chance if we reformulate. So we're looking into that again.
Is that the only IP?
Sorry?
Is that one patent? Is that the only IP?
Well, basically, yeah, what we try to do is we try to, maybe a little bit ambitious, we try to patent decentralized control in the way that we intend on having. But as it turns out, there was an article published in China by a professor, actually a world famous professor, and because he published that article, that now it's public knowledge, and neither us or nobody else can get a patent on a general concept of what we're trying to do. But Mike, our third partner, he's going to try and alter the patent in such a way that it's a little bit more specific, and he thinks, and we believe in him, that we're going to be able to get a patent over that.
I think you're going to find when you speak to real investors that this is a key issue.
Yeah, we know.
That there has to be some kind of IP and some kind of protection around it.
Yeah.
So that's something that I would put a little bit of effort into. So
Now we're talking value for investors.
yeah,
Is that right?
just because what else is it that you're presenting them? I mean, some of your colleagues could probably copy this then if there is no protection.
The patent, software patents are, you know, they're not.
Any patent is always.
Yeah, but definitely we're going to try as much as we can to patent at least several aspects of that. We thought about maybe patenting particular protocols that we invented and stuff.
Software patents in Europe are very, very weak. Yeah.
But maybe anything else about the
Yeah.
concept that can be kind of
Yeah.
protected, that's.
Okay. Jørgen?
I think we now it's a little back to some earlier questions, but you should think about software or consultancy, because if you or adapt to one ADV supplier perhaps, I feel that if you want to cover all suppliers, you mentioned there were about 200 just in Denmark, Sweden and Germany. And if you take the whole world, there will be thousands.
Yes.
And they will have even more thousands of different products, hardware platforms. And you will end up in having 1 million versions of your software. And
Well, not of our software, but of the middleware, yes. We'll have a generic decor software, but the connection, yeah, that's absolutely true.
you think you can keep one generic version of your software on all hardware platforms?
Well, with a different middleware, yes. Basically, that's what we did now with this prototype proof of concept thing. Because we wrote the software, and now that's exactly what we're doing, right in the middleware to fit the small tiny AGVs that we're playing around with. So if that's going to work, it should work in any.
Because I don't know, we run a system called SAP at Danfoss. And,
Yeah, so, yeah.
yeah, when we buy something that has to interface with our SAP software, we normally only use companies that are already certificated by SAP,
Yeah.
because then we know that there is a sort of audition that makes this software reliable.
One of our biggest goals is to be SAP certified,
Yeah,
and
because
we're working towards it.
exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's in an industry like this. This is almost a requirement. There's no way around it. And we're also simulating now in this proof of concept. We're simulating the same environment that SAP is creating to be as close as we can to be compatible with SAP. And then when in the phases where we commercialize, we definitely, that's one of our biggest goals, to be SAP certificate, because that's basically getting approved by the industry. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
The last from Arne, before we have to go to talk a little more investors and who's the right investors for this.
I was just thinking a little bit about the competitors.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I think we haven't talked so much about them.
Mhm.
And it sounds like it is a very unique way of doing it, but have you actually looked into what the competitors are capable of?
Thing is, we might be the only ones that doing decentralized control, but actually the customers, they don't care about that. What they care is if they want an upgrade solution that would save them money. So if we come with this decentralized or not, maybe not be the...
But even that, I'm not sure if I have to be the pleasant person here or I have to do it a little bit more harsh, but yesterday evening when I was somehow trying to figure out what this was all about, I was going into the internet and was looking into the automated vehicle, also getting a basic understanding of it.
Yes.
And suddenly I also came around some other companies which also claim to have this kind of decentralized way of doing it.
But
and I'm just getting a little bit, how much can I actually rely on what you have written, or is it somewhere it's a little bit more, this is actually what you dream about and this is actually based on evidence. I think that somehow is also important when you get ahead with the next step, so that you can actually state that this is actually based on some kind of evidence underneath.
Yes. Companies, for example, Danfoss also claims that they have decentralized control, but they talk about something completely different. And also there's several degrees of decentralization. Actually, in the technical presentation, if now we're really going down into technical details, but in the technical presentation, I actually present a mathematical model of different degrees of decentralization.
Okay.
So you have the regular centralized model where one point connected to everything, and then you have different degrees, something that's called the original, something that's called linear decentralization. But what we claim is to be the first non-hierarchy, well, I can't say that word, with no hierarchy. And in that sense, that is the first in the world, and that solution is the only one that is really absolutely 100% decentralized in the world.
Is that what your question was also?
It was more like, it's just when you're presenting things, that there are somehow evidence behind it.
Definitely.
And when I was reading it, it was a little bit like, I got a kind of, is this just a sales presentation or is it really a business plan? And especially when I saw that, at least I found two which were claiming almost the same. They had been in the market for years. And then I got this kind of, oh, what are we talking about? And it might be a misconception from me, as you just said, that there is a kind of more details to being decentralized, which has a kind of importance in this case.
Absolutely.
But also when you're going out there and trying to convince people that this is actually unique, then this kind of details are perhaps important.
People have been trying to achieve decentralization since the beginning of the 80s.
Yeah.
Okay, we have to switch over and look at the investor side of this case. Actually, this is an investor pitch, actually. And Is it ready for investors now, or what? Lots of you, I know you have seen investor pitches before. Nils, you have seen a lot.
Well, it depends on what kind of investors we're talking about.
Yes, what kind of it?
So you're asking 1.5 million Danish kroner
For the next year.
Yeah, but still, that's what you want to
Exactly.
raise now. Just the size of the amount is kind of limits you a little bit in who you can talk to. Now this is I can only encourage you to sell this as a software business, because if you go out and try and raise money for consultancy, that's not going to happen. So to the investors, you really need to emphasize the software side of this. So there's many ways of financing it. The question is, and what I maybe do appreciate about your approach to this is, could you actually bootstrap your business by doing consultancy work? And that's a completely different discussion than this very stringent and very linear and polished way of building a business. Now you obviously have a dream here, and then how do you put food on the table? You're probably part-time right now with this project and doing other stuff on the other side. So the question is, could you actually raise the 1.5 million by just doing consultancy work within this area, obviously, and then you have the money to take the next step on the software side? I don't have the answer to that. So, but otherwise, 1.5 million, the stage where you are, you want to look within the growth houses and those areas where they have smaller sizes of investment amounts that they do, and they do it very early on, because it is very early on. I wouldn't waste any time on VCs, to be very frank with you. Not as the world is right now. You receive money from PHJ or whatever it's called, which is philanthropical money. That's always good. Maybe you want to look at foundations that can give you maybe not 500,000 or maybe smaller portions, if it's only 1.5 million that you're looking for.
Basically, that money is, well, this is just knowledge. This is not nothing. That money is basically for us to survive.
Right.
Joost is going to keep his part-time job here at the university, and Mike, our third partner, is also going to work as the researcher. So we're trying to minimize that amount as much as we possibly can.
I'm talking more about maybe the creative sides of financing the next step, because I think the traditional VC route, I wouldn't spend too much time on that, to be quite honest, but that's maybe just because I'm discouraged in other situations. Then you're probably a direct competitor to the software providers in the value chain, so that's maybe a bad place to go for financing. The ATVs, if you can find friendly ATVs out there that you can do development work together with, then that's a very good way of getting the next stage financed, and that's something that could be kind of a double-edged sword, you could say, in the sense that you get money and you get a foot in the door at the same time. So a potential collaboration partner for the next step, getting the product onto the market. Consultancies, I don't know too much about the consultancies in this space, but I doubt that they'll put money up front for development work for you guys. I think it's more the hardware guys that you should look for. Then there's some competitions that you can probably participate in, and if you win, there's a little bit of money in there. It's not like 1.5 million, but you may be able to get money that way around.
50,000.
Right, but anything counts, I think. And then you have to look inwards as well. I think, what can you guys come up with yourself? 1.5 million if you're 3 people and you've got family and friends, then you should get some way on that yourself, I think. I know you're spending your time on it and that's unpaid, but do you have hard cash that you can put into this as well? It's going to make a hell of a difference when you go out and ask for the rest of the money. If you say we put in 500,000 ourselves, yeah, I think that's it. That's the challenge, you could say. The pitch, I mean, if you do this the next 10 times, you're going to continue to improve it. And my best advice is to maybe do this a couple of times more, pitch it to people that have some kind of background knowledge, and then do a list of potential investors, and then start with those that you expect the least from, and then just get better from there. I think that the best way of improving your presentation is giving it to real people that you expect you should invest in.
HEV suppliers, then you get in the pocket on one of the...
No, I don't believe in that. I think the world is far too pragmatic and it's up to you guys as business people to figure out how you're going to end up in that situation. If you start out by saying, okay, they're just going to have exclusivity for the next 10 years, obviously you're not going to try it. But if you try it, you learn something, and you may find somebody who's a little bit more pragmatic out there and who's not going to completely tie you down. So I can only encourage you to and you will learn a whole lot, because this is a key part of your value chain that you need to understand.
Yeah.
So if nothing else, you'll get to know these guys, you start building relationships, etc., etc. And I think that's I would try it at least. That's one of 5 different things that you probably need to try.
Yeah.
So
Yes. Other?
thank you.
I think it's going to be a little bit of a key to obtain that initial customer. I would say if I was an investor, that would definitely weigh a lot. So if you already have a firm agreement with that first company and you have a dollar amount on the table, sure, that will help finance the development cost, because that's really what we're talking here, is developing the software. And I see that might be a challenge in itself, that when you start working with one and the second company, you get really wrapped into that company's operations. You work as consultants. At the same time, you want to make sure you stay on track with developing the out-of-the-box product, which is really, as Neil said, it's really the software is going to be the key. It's going to be the interesting part of the business. So that's going to be a little bit of a challenge there itself. But in order to attract investments, I think it's very important that you do have really like a long line of companies that wants to be a part of this. And you might have a firm agreement with 1 or 2 of them. We have the 200,000 here, and then we have another 500,000 here, and we're a handful of people now out there working and implementing. And then reassure the investor that we're working hard on getting the out-of-the-box product in place. And then you have to plus 100 million crowns in 4 or 5 years from now. I think that's going to be very important.
So can I piggyback on that point, by the way? Because you showed some pretty big brand names there before. What's the dialogue with them?
Well, we talked with Novo Nordisk. As I said, they were very cooperative, very interested. But again, that was an IT manager and not the CEO. I don't remember who asked that, but that was a very. So the next step would be, okay, so the IT manager is very interested. That's fine. Now it's exactly what we're gonna do in the next month is, okay, if you think it's interesting, put me on the phone with your CEO or with the guy that makes the decision, because that's exactly where we're gonna start. We also had a dialogue with Dinex where we're gonna go there now and visit them. Also Novo Nordisk.
The basic plan is to talk to the IT managers and go over there, look at the facilities, and get a very, very clear idea about what their individual issues are that they're struggling with. So what are the problems for this company? And then actually, see, okay, where do we come in this picture? And then try to get a clear idea of the decision-making units and try to get a meeting with the decision makers. That's what we're working on right now. But we're working right now on a somewhat lower level with, like Ronan says, with the IT managers, warehouse managers, where I'm in contact with them on the phone and by email, where I try to get a very clear idea. Okay, what do your facilities look like? What kind of software do you use? What kind of service contracts do you have? And if I know these things, I will actually go there, probably together with Ronan and Mike, get a tour of the facilities. We've already done this at Danfoss, and get a much clearer idea. Okay, what are actually the key issues they're struggling with here, and what's important. Also for us, it's very important to know all this information. And then the next step is to actually try to get into some sort of a sales process.
I think it's a very good point. I mean, even if you can only sell them a very, very small project, try and do that just to get their name.
Yeah.
Because that's going to be huge leverage when you want to
Absolutely. That's why that was the whole idea behind the consultancy thing.
I think it's a good approach that you go to the IT people there, because you have to look at it this way, that they are going to sell your solution. You know? And that, I think that's a good strategy, because you couldn't approach the decision maker.
No.
You know, the manager has to be competent in-house. You couldn't do that because they wouldn't have the knowledge. Well, you should do that, but you need to go to the people that influence, that really see the problems. They're going to be able to sell your product. So next step is that you work hard on getting that meeting where the top decision makers in there and settle them. I really think that's the key, that you get one or two companies, maybe not one, get lined up, maybe one company with 2 or 3 perhaps. If you can, I think that's going to be a major step. And like Nils, I was kind of curious how far you've got with Novo or any of the others, if you have really like something on the table, not a signed agreement, but they had expressed that they want to go forward with you. And so I'm kind of curious as to how far you've gotten there.
Yeah, I'm afraid we're still in the early stages of that. Just really, talk.
You started with some really heavy duty guys. I don't know, some small. Can't you get that ref from somewhere else? Have you brainstormed enough on that?
Well, as I said, I don't see a small company interested in a software like that at
So
all.
there's a similar application which is not in the warehouse. Is there something like that? I'm just asking. I don't know, maybe not.
Not that we can see right now. Well, there's always the military application, which was also attractive, but we decided not to go on that for other reasons, you know, because that's not what we want to do.
Actually, in the agriculture, they used AGV also. Have you tried to explore that?
Yeah, but that's even a more conservative industry than this one we're trying to penetrate here. That's a real.
But again, they are all these smaller companies, you know, these farmers. And just to get into a company, I think that'll be easier because.
Yeah, but then you have the same problem that a smaller company doesn't really get the benefits that a bigger company.
You don't want to. You just want the references.
Yeah, exactly.
You want to build the references. If the benefit is minor to them, then hopefully it's enough for them to make it worthwhile.
What in agriculture are you exactly referring to? Is it the automated harvesters or?
Yeah,
I'm not entirely
actually,
sure.
I work with that myself actually, and that is for feeding processes around the farmers, you know, for the cows, driving automated vehicles around. You know, they are driving automatically into the feeder, getting into the food into a wagon, dry out to, and put it into the rows of cows, down again to fill up, and in a certain timing, their cycles is around. And
Is it a cycle?
Yeah, exactly. There is different kind of cycles around, but there will be some interfaces where different wagons are, you know, crossing the lines. If they are, you know, when they're going to the same place to get food into the wagons.
I was not aware of that, and I would be very interested to hear more about that. That possible application.
I've been developing this kind of system for. I know some kind of farmers.
We did look at robotics in
Exactly.
agriculture.
We sort of abandoned that because those are MIT projects and it's really quite far from the market. But the things you're talking about are very interesting. So because we have some contacts in Germany where people are working on what they call the $500 AGV, which is basically a small cart. A very small, simple AGV they're working on, and since I met them, I've been keeping that in the back of my mind. That could be a very, very interesting cooperation with something like that. But then for the farmers, that sounds very good.
Doing that.
What's the name of that company?
Comal.
Comal?
Comal. C-U-R-M-A-L.
They sit over here on the third floor.
Directly sitting over here.
That's maybe.
Yeah, but okay.
Yeah, we will definitely look into that.
I can help you a little bit about this if you want. Another thing is also in this area there are more possibilities also because bigger farmers have different purposes of these vehicles. So if they are driving around in different buildings, outside, inside, and so on. And that'll be kind of like in Legoland, if you've been there, the cars will be crossing each line, and there can be some kind of possibilities there. So again, if you can go and you can get those implementation maybe also for free or almost free, you can get the names, the reference, you can see this was a success, you can use that for sales, marketing.
Yeah, but I again, this is technical, we'll take that later, but I don't know how much decision making there is actually in that kind of setup, because I have to illustrate, this software is not the software that controls the vehicle. That is not what we do, and this should be very clear. This is a software that combines the vehicles together. So if they cross a line, and you just need a software to tell it to stop and wait for another.
Okay.
That's not really what we do, but where there's a complex process to think about how to implement a lot of elements together and get the best result. That's where.
Okay.
So I just wanted to say it, but it still could be interesting. I don't know. But
Yeah, the less linear the process, the more benefits Deco will show.
Sure. The more complex, better.
Yeah.
So
You can,
I'm curious. So it's kind of a mesh kind of software that
Exactly.
we're talking about.
exactly.
So is that an application here or?
Well, it's kind of built in the same way that a mesh network would work, in kind of with ad hoc connections, and that's why we say a lot of parallel decision making, because everything is considered when it happens, specifically to a location.
But you want something to be moving around, obviously. So
Yeah, of course, it has to be a network.
Okay, last omkring about this, Jesper, do you have any experience about financing the product from this?
First of all, I would say that you, of course, need to differentiate your presentations, of course, depending on who the audience is. First of all, if it is, I totally agree again with Niels in terms of business angels and these guys would, in my opinion, also not be interested. And if it is people like that, in general, it has to be more in terms of the business model and the financing and regional investment and all that you of course need to do. And then I also thought about if referencing is one of the keys to continue to make different investors or whatever interested. Why don't you try to do some pro bono in terms of saying there are different industries, like for instance airports, whatever. Take a small area within an airport, for instance, try to convince them to install it, try it out for a trial period or whatever. Do the same with some of the industries. It could also be Lego or Carlsberg or whatever. Do it for free to begin with. Try to let them try it out, get their references, get their opinions about it, and don't think that much in the beginning of the payment of 5 million or 200,000 and whatever. Just to let them try it out, make a trial period or whatever, and do it within different industries so that you have references from different parts of different industries. Maybe just for a period.
Yeah.
Short period. We've been thinking about doing it for free, and we decided on the first project that they have to pay a symbolic amount, because if you do things for free, they're often perceived as having no value. So even if you do a really, really good job, it's been given for free, people have the tendency to perceive it as something of no value.
But the thing is that you don't need to mention at the beginning that it is for free. The thing is that what you need to do is to have experience both with the systems, with the industries, with the products and things like that. You need to establish knowledge about what the potential end customer thinks about it, and then use that on either a website or in the presentations, referencing and whatever. All that you can get is what you can need in terms of investment and things like that, and then still continue to make these pitch talks.
How much money are you burning on a monthly basis?
Right now,
Yeah.
basically, right now we're paying our office. When that is done, We're not, well, very little.
Do you
10,000 kroner.
Less.
do you consider us as well, like salary?
No, unless you're taking our salary, but I assume that can kind of be cut quite easily.
Yeah, we're not taking salaries. That's what I'm saying.
So the only fixed expense is your
It's definitely office.
the office.
And gear that we bought.
Yeah.
That's it, the platform that we're expanding.
Right now, it's definitely not more than a few thousand crowns each month.
Yeah. What we basically need is that investment is basically just to carry us through the end of the development stage.